Welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about takeoff in 2D, and today's presenter is Josh Walker. So Josh, I'm going to make you the presenter and we can get this thing started.
So just as Julie said, we're going to go over some 2D features inside of Estimator. So for any of you who haven't seen the program before, this is DESTINI Estimator. We're going to start our time together today from what we call a template. Templates are standard starting places to help us standardize our workflows so that we can capture the most out of it. Today, we're going to strictly focus on 2D takeoff. So we'll really go through the whole process of 2D takeoff. We'll go over where we can load in PDFs or images from. We will do some 2D takeoff. We'll go over some new features that have been added in, and then we'll wrap up with answering questions. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to navigate to our Takeoff tab and review the two places that we can load PDFs in from. So option number one that we'll cover for our time together today is we do have the ability to load in information from Procore. So what you will do is you'll have the ability to log in to your Procore account. Procore will bring you to your company, then you'll have access to the projects that you have been invited to. We can select on the project that we want to bring in, and then those PDFs will be loaded in for us to do takeoff on. Once we've brought a PDF in, we have the ability, we'll use it in kind of both workflows that we discussed today, to select on our bookmarks and be able to navigate across the sheets that we would like to perform takeoff on. Our second option is to select on the load PDF or image button. What this will do for us is, if you're in the hosted environment, this should be something that you are familiar with, but where we're going to navigate today is to the Z drive. So that is a drive that is in the hosted environment where we recommend that you store your PDFs. So we'll navigate to the PDF that we want to use for our time together today. As we bring that PDF in, just like before, that PDF will be loaded in if we need to navigate, across several pages. We'll have our bookmark tabs that will give us the ability to do that. So first thing as we think of takeoff, we're going to give that page a scale. We have a new measure tool. So our measure tool, if we want to check the scale or find the dimension of a certain item, we'll have the ability to do so today. So we'll go find ourselves a known measurement over on the corner of our page and check our scale. So as we come in here, we select, we have a 29 foot 9-inch line. We have over on the right, our measurement says that's 25 feet 9 inches. So our scale is correct on this page. So now we'll start to go into some takeoff and go over a couple features that have been added into our takeoff recently. Up in the top right of our takeoff, we will have our vectors. So if you're using a vectorized PDF, you will have the ability to consume those. So the farther we move this bar to the left, the more aggressively the program will look for vectors and the more vectors that we will encounter. The farther we move it to the right, the less aggressively the program will look and will encounter fewer vectors. So what we did was we just brought up our cost database over on our left-hand side. And what this will allow us to do is it will allow us to find the line items that we want to do takeoff on. So we could either navigate through, we could find our line items. So if we go in, we'll find an acoustical ceiling line item to do takeoff with today. The first takeoff feature that we're going to cover in our time together today is the new way that we can close takeoff. So those blue lines that are appearing are vectors. So as we do that takeoff, each time that we click on a blue line, the program will take off the extent of that line, so we don't have to click on the individual points. One new feature that has recently been added to takeoff is instead of having to hit the enter or middle mouse wheel to close your takeoff, now you can double click and that will close your takeoff. Another thing that we've made easier recently is the ability to add points. So as we're looking at our takeoff here, we included our closet in the upper right-hand side of this. If we didn't want to include our closet, if we wanted to come back in and say, hey, we're going to run a different ceiling system there, and we need to add points. Our first step there is we're going to just left click on the takeoff that we want to add an additional point to. We can right click and select the add point button, and we'll add in another point to where we can drag our takeoff to. So here we'd have the ability, to start to drag our points over. As we're clicking on those points, we can move them over, and now we have excluded our closet from our takeoff. So again, if we want to add points to a takeoff, we just left click on the takeoff that we want to add a point to, and then right click where we would like to add our point. So what we'll go over next is we'll go through and we'll go over how we can do takeoff and then have the ability to split that takeoff after we have completed it. So we're going to select on a gypsum board, a drywall line item. What we'll do here is we're going to go in, depending on how you have your units of measure set up for your database, the program may put you in an area takeoff because of the square foot unit of measure. So if we need to, we do have the ability to change the type of a takeoff before we do that takeoff. So also we can change things like colors, the ability to change pattern as well. So as we go through and start to do our takeoff, we'll say, we're going to have a drywall wall. Drywall wall is going to run down in between our two rooms here. Oops, misclicked by me. Sorry about that. Let me do that one more time. I got hit back. So we'll turn those off. So as we're doing our drywall wall, we'll come down. Let's say now that we've done our wall, we want to split that takeoff. What we'll do is splitting, currently our takeoff is in one piece. So it's one piece, we can't edit that individually. So what we've done is we've added a feature that if we go in and we add a point to our takeoff, we're going to want to add that point where we will split our takeoff. Then what we'll do is we'll right click on that new point and say split polyline. And that will now, we have our segment before we reach our bathroom. And now we have our segment after our bathroom. So that way, if we wanted to assign it to a new material, we could do that very easily. What we'll go over next is we'll go over how we can tie multiple takeoffs to the same assembly. So what we're going to do here is we've set up in this template, we're going to go do a construction, slab on grade takeoff. So we're going to say, for our example, that we want to have some construction joint. And we'll just, for our example, run that construction joint across our slab. And we're going to be able to use this link here in just a moment to answer a question that will come from our assembly. So this is a standard takeoff pallet item. It does not have any cost associated with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our database. We'll go find kind of a slab on grade assembly. And what we'll do is as we're doing that assembly, program will put us into a sketching mode. As we work our way around the edge of our assembly, it's going to update the area and perimeter like it will do for all of our area takeoffs. For anyone who isn't familiar with what an assembly is, assemblies are groups of line items that have a series of questions asked about them. So as we come in, once we finish our takeoff, area and our thickness will be brought over, or excuse me, area and perimeter. We can enter our thickness. We can have our, make a selection for concrete strength, and that will bring over items for us. Then we'll say, yes, we do want to include joints, but we want to be able to go back and use the length for that concrete joint that we established earlier. So what we'll do is we will turn off automatic pricing. We're going to go to our takeoff summary and we will select on our construction joint. That will bring up the length from that construction joint that we tied earlier. We can left click and drag that quantity over. And now that quantity is tied to our construction joint. You can turn automatic pricing back on. And now we've been able to tie multiple assemblies, or excuse me, multiple takeoffs to one assembly. Now we can add that into our estimate. The last piece that we will go over for our time together today is we'll go over a new feature that will allow us to convert an area takeoff to an arc after it is finished. So for ease of use, what we'll do is we'll jump over to a fresh page. We'll search and we'll go find a flooring line item, for example. So as we go in, the new feature will allow us to add an arc to the linear area takeoff after we finished it. So for our example today, we'll just make a very simple square on our room. And there's two ways that this functionality can work. If we select on our left click on our takeoff and we click in between 2 points. So if we right click and say convert to arc, there will be an arc established between those 2 points. So as we drag our mouse, we'll have the ability to interact with that arc. The second way that this functionality can work is if we select on an individual point. So if we select on our point here on our left-hand side, and we select convert to arc, that point will become where our arc is defined from. So we'll have the ability to drag our arc there wherever we need to. A couple quick reminders on this. All of these features for double click to close, split to polyline, multiple material takeoff can all be found on our help center, and you can get to our help center through our website, becktechnology.com. So Julie, that brings me to the end of my agenda for today. Are there any questions that I can answer?
There are a couple of questions. I know at the very beginning you showed bringing in a 2D drawing from Procore. Can you reiterate how we can bring in 2D drawings? Do you have to have Procore? And if you do bring it in from Procore, do you have to have a license of Procore?
So you do not have to bring in PDFs through Procore. That is one of the two options. So we can load in information through Procore. To bring that in, we are going to have a license of Procore to be able to bring that document in. But you don't have to have Procore. So the second way, and the way that we brought in the PDF that we did take off on, was that we just loaded that from a drive, so that doesn't require any Procore licensing.
And then following up on that one, can you bring in drawings from Autodesk Build?
Today, currently, we cannot bring in drawings from Autodesk Build.
Thank you for clarifying that. All right, another question we have from the audience. When you load PDF drawings, do the drawings need to have labels assigned to the pages?
Yes, that will make navigation easier. So really what we want to have assigned to our pages is bookmarks, and that's what will allow you to easily switch between pages.
Cool. I know we're running out of time. I'm going to ask one last question. If you did submit questions, audience, we will follow up with you. So don't worry, your questions will get answered. So the last question for today, does the area takeoff also return a perimeter?
Yes.
Excellent. Easy enough.